Well, for more on what to expect from Godongwana's Budget 3.0, we're joined by Institute for Economic Justice budget analyst Zimbali Mncube and Black Sash community-based monitoring and research manager Abigail Peters. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, a lot of eyes obviously going to be on what comes out of that budget speech tomorrow. And I think for the everyday South African, they're concerned about how it's going to impact their pocket. And so, Abigail, I want to start with you. Top of mind concerns for Black Sash about what we could possibly hear tomorrow, and any sort of concerns that you have about social security with that 75 billion rand shortfall.
Well, I think for the Black Sash, and good evening to everyone, we are concerned about how the budget will go in terms of advancing dignity, equality, and social justice. And of course, it's not just an economic statement, it's a reflection of what we value as a country. Our expectations are simple, but it's really urgent. Protect the gains made in the social grant system and take bold steps towards expanding it.
And we're going to, of course, dig into how we go about doing that in a moment. But Zimbali, with the IEJ top of mind of what you really are worried about for tomorrow's budget speech.
Thanks. I think although it's been a while now since the president delivered his SONA, it's still important to reiterate that he focused on three key priority areas, and that is driving inclusive growth and job creation, building a capable state, as well as ensuring that we support and protect the vulnerable from the high cost of living. And so it is a budget that is going to be complementary to these priorities that we are hoping that the minister will deliver. And that entails maintaining the social wage and increasing support to social grants and public services. It entails taking measures to actually ramp up spending in key sectors of the economy to actually drive job creation. And it entails a plan to raise revenue sustainably to ensure that these key priority areas are serviced and resourced over the medium term. And that's what we're hoping for. But as your guest has highlighted, the low-hanging fruit are expenditure cuts, particularly those that will harm the most vulnerable in healthcare, in education. We're expecting to see cuts, given the minister has already highlighted that there is this budget hold, which of course we've pushed back to say that this year it's only about 2.7 billion that needs to be addressed, as opposed to the often quoted 75 billion. And so given that they've laid it out in that sense, we can expect budget cuts. However, it needs to be understood that these will have long-term impacts on human capital development and on the economy itself, as well as there's the intention to actually decrease the debt to GDP ratio. Because if you're cutting government expenditure or government spending, which is a large chunk of GDP, you are therefore actually increasing the debt to GDP ratio. So austerity has failed, and the minister himself has admitted this. And so we question on what basis would there be cuts if they are implemented as we expect tomorrow.
Yeah, the likelihood, though, where you've got an economist, and I'm just going to stay with you for a while here, Zimbali, and then Abigail will help us with how we ensure that we protect the most vulnerable. But help us with this, Zimbali. The likelihood that you have economists that are saying that the most vulnerable taxpayers could feel the pinch through bracket creep, fuel levies, and reduced tax credits. The likelihood that we could see that, and what do you see as a workaround around those matters?
Yeah, of course. In the statement that the minister released, we saw that there will be a reversal on the zero rating. However, the statement was quite silent on bracket creep or the freeze of bracket. And so we're expecting that indeed that will likely is going to stay, and it's going to have, like we've said in our statements in the past, it's going to have a negative impact on low-income households and the middle class in particular. Given that already there's global dynamics that are influencing the costs of goods and services in our economy, and so we can expect that those are likely going to stay and are going to have a negative impact alongside a low growth path and that we've seen previously. So we are very far ahead from the ambitious targets of 3% annual growth that the president looked towards by 2027.
So, Abigail, talk to us about how we ultimately are able to, as Zimbali has talked about coming out of the president's SONA, protect the vulnerable. The reports now, and certainly the statements saying there may very well be a reversal of the zero rating in that increase of zero rated goods. What we do about that, what you make of that, and what does need to be said about how the pie is split to ensure that you keep the most vulnerable protected.
Well, I think that's really important, the vulnerable in this country. And I think what's important is urgently protecting and expanding social grants. Social grant system is one of the most important lifelines for the poor, working class families who really depend on that. But people are suffering because of unemployment, which remains high, and the cost of basic food that remains high, even transport. And so we are concerned that the gains made in the social protection are under threat. And the proposed 370 SRD grant is just simply not enough. It doesn't even cover basic basket of food for one person, and let alone support an entire household, which is how the SRD is often used. And to support those vulnerable who really need it. And that is an extremely important protection. And it's not just that protection that is needed. It's those who are not only also surviving, it's those who are surviving on the edge. And so it is important to be able to realize what a majority of those who depend on these grants are experiencing in this country. And of course, in some way, we need to have talks towards a permanent basic income support mechanism that can support these vulnerable groups. People don't need temporary relief. They need predictable, reliable, long-term support. And that's why we are calling for a permanent basic income support program that can help these, and especially those aged 18 to 59 who are without income.
Yeah. Can we talk, Abigail, about just the confidence that you have, though, that we will see this budget reach the finish line? Because tomorrow, really, the finance minister going to table the budget. Still quite a lengthy process to come even after that, right? They've got to sit before the portfolio committee. They've got to head back to the National Assembly. There needs to be public consultations, of course, first. And then there has to be the sitting before the National Assembly or in the National Assembly and then voting on this budget. Do you think that Budget 3.0 will be the last of it? Are you confident?
Well, we really can't say, but that is our hope. We need this budget to show serious political and fiscal commitment, not just to pilots or a placeholder, but building a system that acknowledges people's right to live with dignity and not desperation. And so we recognize that government faces tough physical decisions, but these choices must not deepen inequality in this country.
Yeah. Bandile, Zimbali, apologies for that. The same question for you.
Yeah, I think we've seen slight shifts coming out from the National Treasury in actually admitting that the budget process needs to be opened up to a wider range of stakeholders in terms of getting it over the line. And so previously what we've seen is that it's been a closed process that is just rubber stamped by Parliament. And so Parliament has come out and engaged robustly in the previous budget. And so I'm quite confident that with that realization and with a emerging political consensus that we need a credible budget, which is going to help us achieve our social and economic priorities, we'll be able to get it over the line, particularly because we are now getting closer to July, and that's where I think the provision that is in the PFMA, which allows the government to dip in the previous budget, sort of is going to end for the country. And so we need to resolve the situation that we find ourselves in sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for speaking to us. Zimbali Mncube there, IEJ budget analyst, and Abigail Peters, who is community-based monitoring and research manager at Black Sash, sharing their expectations for that budget statement that will be tabled by the finance minister tomorrow. But the key issue that they, of course, are focusing on is what will it mean for the poorest in our country. We're taking your WhatsApps on 072-110-5584. Let's take a look at a couple of those. Eddie says the budget must remain 15% since the government cannot create jobs for youth, and some municipalities are returning money without using it. I'm sure you're talking about the VAT there, Eddie. Thank you so much. Tamsangla says, I hope the Minister of Finance will maintain balance to give us some cut of cost measures to a balanced fiscal of the year, as well as social grants to be balanced as well. Okay, Tamsangla, appreciate your thoughts. Jerry Mudiba says, evening, when presenting the budget, the Minister and the government should remember to return the teachers' rural incentives that we were robbed of. All right, let's take a look at one more. Puti says, evening, I'm expecting the Minister of Finance to focus more on job creation and encourage government departments and municipalities not to use more service providers that will give opportunities for permanent job creation. We'll continue taking your thoughts on that and other stories as well.